Guadalajara is the capital and largest city of the Mexican state of Jalisco, and the seat of the municipality of Guadalajara. The city is in the central region of Jalisco in the western Pacific area of Mexico. With a population of 1,495,189, it is Mexico's fourth most populous municipality. The Guadalajara Metropolitan Area includes 7 adjacent municipalities with a reported population of 4,328,584 in 2009, making it the second most populous metropolitan area in Mexico, behind Mexico City. The municipality is the second most densely populated in Mexico, the first being Ciudad Nezahualcóyotl in state of Mexico. Guadalajara is the 10th largest city in Latin America in population, urban area and gross domestic product. The city is named after the Spanish city of Guadalajara, the name of which came from the Andalusian and Arabic Wad el Hajira, meaning river, valley of stones. The city's economy is based on industry, especially information technology, with a large number of international firms having manufacturing facilities in the Guadalajara metropolitan area. Other, more traditional industries, such as shoes, textiles and food processing, are also important contributing factors. Guadalajara is a cultural center of Mexico, considered by most to be the home of mariachi music and host to a number of large-scale cultural events such as the Guadalajara International Film Festival, the Guadalajara International Book Fair, and globally renowned cultural events which draw international crowds. It is home to the C.D. Guadalajara, one of the most popular football clubs in Mexico. This city was named the American Capital of Culture for 2005. Guadalajara hosted the 2011 Pan American Games. History. The city was established in 5 other places before moving to its current location. The first settlement in 1532 was in Mesa del Cerro, now known as Nochistlán, Zacatecas. This site was settled by Cristobal de Onate as commissioned by Nuno de Guzman, with the purpose of securing recent conquests and defending them against the still hostile natives. The settlement did not last long at this spot due to the lack of water. In 1533 it was moved to a location near Tonala. 4 years later, Guzman ordered that the village be moved to Lacotan. While the settlement was in Lacotan, the Spanish King Charles VI granted the coat of arms that the city still has today. This settlement was ferociously attacked during the Mixtan War in 1543 by Caxcan, Portequex and Zacateco peoples under the command of Tenemaxtli. The war was initiated by the natives due to the cruel treatment of Indians by Nuno de Guzman, in particular the enslavement of captured natives. Viceroy Antonio de Mendoza had to take control of the campaign to suppress the revolt after the Spanish were defeated in several engagements. The conflict ended after Mendoza made some concessions to the Indians, such as freeing the Indian slaves and granting amnesty. The village of Guadalajara barely survived the war, and the villagers attributed the survival to the Archangel Michael, who remains the patron of the city. It was decided to move the city once again, this time to Atamajac, as it was more defensible. The city has remained that to this day. In 1542, records indicate that 126 people were living in Guadalajara, and, in the same year, the status of city was granted by the King of Spain. Guadalajara was officially founded on February 19, 1550 in the valley of Atamajac. The settlement's name came from the Spanish hometown of Nuno de Guzman. In 1559, royal offices for the province of Nueva Galicia were moved from Compostela to Guadalajara, as well as the bishopric. Construction of the cathedral was begun in 1563. In 1575, religious orders such as the Augustinians and Dominicans arrived, which would make the city a center for evangelization efforts. The historic city center encompasses what was four centers of population, as the villages of Mezcutin, Analco and Mexicalcingo were annexed to the Artimajac site in 1669. In 1791, the University of Guadalajara was established in the city, which was then the capital of Nueva Galicia. The inauguration was held in 1792 at the site of the old Santo Tomas College. While the institution was founded during the 18th century, it would not be fully developed until the 20th, starting in 1925. In 1794, the Hospital Real de San Miguel de Belén, or simply the Hospital de Belén, was opened. The hospital was opened in 2016. Guadalajara's economy during the 18th century was based on agriculture and the production of non-durable goods such as textiles, shoes and food products. Guadalajara remained the capital of Nueva Galicia with some modifications until the Mexican War of Independence. After Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla decided not to attack Mexico City, despite early successes, he retreated to Guadalajara in late 1810. Initially, he and his army were welcome in the city, as living conditions had become difficult for workers and Hidalgo promised to lower taxes and put an end to slavery. However, violence by the rebel army to city residents, especially royalists, soured the welcome. Hidalgo did sign a proclamation ending slavery, which was honored in the country since after the war. During this time, he founded the newspaper El Despertador Americano, dedicated to the insurgent cause. Royalist forces marched to Guadalajara, arriving in January 1811 with nearly 6,000 men. Insurgents Ignacio Allende and Mariano Abasolo wanted to concentrate the forces in the city and plan an escape route should they be defeated, but Hidalgo rejected this. The second choice was to make a stand at the Puente de Calderón just outside the city. Hidalgo had between 80,000 and 100,000 men and 95 cannons, but the better-trained royalists won, decimating the insurgent army, forcing Hidalgo to flee toward Aguascalientes. Guadalajara remained in royalist hands until nearly the end of the war. After the state of Jalisco was erected in 1823, the city became its capital. In 1844, General Mariano Paredes Huayraga initiated a revolt against the government of President Antonio López de Santa Anna, which the president managed to quell personally. However, while Santa Anna was in Guadalajara, a revolt called the Revolution of the 3 Hours brought José Joaquín Herrera to the presidency and put Santa Anna into exile. During the Reform War, President Benito Juárez had his government here in 1856. French troops entered the city during the French intervention in 1864, and the city was retaken by Mexican troops in 1866. Despite the violence, the 19th century was a period of economic, technological and social growth for the city. After independence, small-scale industries developed, many of them owned by immigrants from Europe. Rail lines connecting the city to the Pacific coast and north to the United States intensified trade and allowed products from rural areas of Jalisco state to be shipped. Ranch culture became a very important aspect of Jalisco's and Guadalajara's identity since this time. From 1884 to 1890, electrical service, railroad service and the observatory were established. Guadalajara again experienced substantial growth after the 1930s, and the first industrial park was established in 1947. Its population surpassed 1 million in 1964, and by the 1970s it was Mexico's second largest city and the largest in western Mexico. Most of the modern city's urbanization took place between the 1940s and the 1980s, with the population doubling every 10 years until it stood at 2.5 million in 1980. The population of the municipality has stagnated, and even declined, slowly but steadily since the early 1990s. The increase in population brought with it an increase in the size of what is now called Greater Guadalajara, rather than an increase in the population density of the city. Migrants coming into Guadalajara from the 1940s to the 1980s were mostly from rural areas and lived in the city center until they had enough money to buy property. This property was generally bought in the edges of the city, which were urbanizing into fraccionamientos, or residential areas. In the 1980s, it was described as a divided city, east to west based on socio-economic class. Since then, the city has evolved into 4 sectors, which are still more or less class-centered. The upper classes tend to live in Hidalgo and Juarez in the northwest and southwest, while lower classes tend to live in the city center, Libertad in the northeast and southeast in Reforma. However, lower-class development has developed on the city's periphery, and upper and middle classes are migrating towards Zapopan, making the situation less neatly divided. Since 1996, activity by multinational corporations has had a significant effect on the economic and social development of the city. The presence of companies such as Kodak, Hewlett-Packard, Motorola and IBM has been based on production facilities built outside the city proper, bringing in foreign labor and capital. This was made possible in the 1980s by surplus labor, infrastructure improvements and government incentives. These companies focus on electrical and electronic items, which is now one of Guadalajara's 2 main products. This has internationalized the economy, steering it away from manufacturing and toward services, dependent on technology and foreign investment. This has not been favorable for the unskilled working class and traditional labor sectors. 1992 sewer explosions. On April 22, 1992, gasoline explosions in the sewer system over 4 hours destroyed 8 kilometers of streets in the downtown district of Analco. Gante Street was the most damaged. Officially, 206 people were killed, nearly 500 injured and 15,000 were left homeless. The estimated monetary damage ranges between $300 million and $1 billion. The affected areas can be recognized by the more modern architecture. 3 days before the explosion, residents started complaining of a strong gasoline-like smell coming from the sewers. City workers were dispatched to check the sewers and found dangerously high levels of gasoline fumes. However, no evacuations were ordered. An investigation into the disaster found that there were 2 precipitating causes. The first was new water pipes that were built too close to an existing gasoline pipeline. Chemical reactions between the pipes caused erosion. The second was a flaw in the sewer design that did not allow accumulated gases to escape. Arrests were made to indict those responsible for the blasts. 4 PEMEX officials were indicted and charged on the basis of negligence. Ultimately, however, these people were cleared of all charges. Calls for the restructuring of PEMEX were made, but they were successfully resisted. International recognition. The city has hosted important international events, such as the first Cumbre Ibero-Americana in 1991, the third summit of heads of state and governments from Latin America, the Caribbean and the European Union in 2004, the Encuentro Internacional de Promotores y Gestores Outdoors Culturals in 2005 and the 2011 Pan American Games. It was named the American Capital of Culture in 2005, Ciudad Educadora in 2006, and the first smart city in Mexico due to its use of technology in development. In its 2007 survey entitled Cities of the Future, FDI magazine ranked Guadalajara highest among major Mexican cities and designated Guadalajara as having the second strongest economic potential of any major North American city, behind Chicago. The magazine also ranked it as the most business-friendly Latin American city in 2007. Historical downtown. The historic downtown of Guadalajara is the oldest section of the city, where it was founded and where the oldest buildings are. It centers on Paseo Morelos, Paseo Hospicio from the Plaza de Armas, where the seats of ecclesiastical and secular power are, east toward the Plaza de Mariachis and the Hospicio Cabanas. The Plaza de Armas is a rectangular plaza with gardens, ironwork benches, and an ironwork kiosk which was made in Paris in the 19th century. Within Guadalajara's historic downtown, there are many squares and public parks. Park Morelos, Plaza de los Mariachis, Plaza Fundadores, Plaza Tapachia, Plaza de la Gavi, Park Revolucion, Jardín del Santuario, Plaza de Armas, Plaza de la Liberación, Plaza Guadalajara, and the Rotonda de los Hombres Ilustres, the last four of which surround the cathedral to form a Latin cross. Construction began on the Metropolitan Cathedral in 1558 and the church was consecrated in 1616. Its two towers were built in the 19th century after an earthquake destroyed the originals. They are considered one of the city's symbols. The architecture is a mix of Gothic, Baroque, Moorish and Neoclassical. The interior has 3 naves and 11 side altars, covered by a roof supported by 30 Doric columns. The Rotonda de los Hombres Ilustres is a monument made of quarried stone, built in 1952 to honor the memory of distinguished people from Jalisco. A circular structure of 17 columns surrounds 98 urns containing the remains of those honored. Across the street is the Municipal Palace, which was built in 1952. It has 4 facades of quarried stone. It is mostly of neoclassical design with elements such as courtyards, entrances and columns that imitate the older structures of the city. The Palace of the State Government is in Churrigueresque and neoclassical styles and was begun in the 17th century and finished in 1774. The interior was completely remodeled after an explosion in 1859. This building contains murals by José Clemente Orozco, a native of Jalisco, including Lucha Social, Circo Politico, Las Fuerzas Ocultas, and Hidalgo, which depicts Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla with his arm raised above his head in anger at the government and the church. The cathedral is bordered to the east by the Plaza de la Liberación, nicknamed the Plaza de las Dos Copas, referring to the 2 fountains on the east and west sides. Facing this plaza is the Teatro de Gallardo. It was built in the mid-19th century in neoclassical design. The main portal has a pediment with a scene in relief called Apollo and the Muses, sculpted in marble by Benito Castaneda. The interior vaulted ceiling is painted with a fresco by Jacobo Galvez and Gerardo Suarez which depicts a scene from the Divine Comedy. Behind the theater is another plaza with a fountain called the Fuente de los Fundadores. The plaza is in the exact spot where the city was founded and contains a sculpture depicting Cristobal de Onate at the event. The Jalisco Regional Museum was built at the beginning of the 18th century to be the Seminario Conciliar de San Jose. From 1861 to 1914, it housed a school called Liceo de Varones. In 1918, it became the Museum of Fine Arts. In 1976, it was completely remodeled for its present use. The museum displays its permanent collection in 16 halls, 15 of which are dedicated to paleontology, prehistory, and archaeology. One of the prized exhibits is a complete mammoth skeleton. The other 2 halls are dedicated to painting and history. The painting collection includes works by Juan Correa, Cristobal de Villalpando and José de Ibarra. Between the cathedral and the hospicio is the large Plaza Tapatio, which covers 70,000 square meters. Its centerpiece is the large Calcotl sculpture fountain. Southeast of this plaza is the Mercado Libertad, also called the Mercado de San Juan de Dios, one of the largest traditional markets in Mexico. The Temple of San Juan de Dios, a Baroque church built in the 17th century, is next to the market. At the far east end is the Plaza de los Mariachis and the ex-hospicio Cabanas. The Plaza de los Mariachis is faced by restaurants where one can hear live mariachis play, especially at night. The ex-hospicio Cabanas extends along the entire east side of the plaza. This building was constructed by Manuel Tolsa beginning in 1805 under orders of Carlos III. It was inaugurated and began its function as an orphanage in 1810, in spite of the fact that it would not be finished until 1845. It was named after Bishop Ruiz de Cabanas y Crespo. The facade is neoclassical and its main entrance is topped by a triangular pediment. Today, it is the home of the Instituto Cultural Cabanas and its main attraction is the murals by José Clemente Orozco, which covers the main entrance hall. Among these murals is Hombre del Fuego, considered to be one of Orozco's finest works. Off this east-west axis are other significant constructions. The Legislative Place is neoclassical and was originally built in the 18th century. It was reconstructed in 1982. The Palace of Justice was finished in 1897. The old university building was a Jesuit college named Santo Tomás de Aquino. It was founded in 1591. It became the second Mexican university in 1792. Its main portal is of yellow stone. The Casa de los Perros was constructed in 1896 in neoclassical design. On Avenida Juárez is the Sanctuary of Nuestra Señora del Carmen, which was founded between 1687 and 1690 and remodeled completely in 1830. It retains its original coat of arms of the Carmelite order as well as sculptures of the prophets Elijah and Elisha. Adjoining it is what is left of the Carmelite monastery, which was one of the richest in New Spain.